All right, so we're just gonna call this revisionist history episode 2, maybe, depending on how the the tech works here. But this is Jared again, and I'm now with Dave, a buddy of mine from work.
How's it going, Jared?
It is going, man. If you could have tried to look into the future a year ago, how close do you think you would have
Not very close.
got?
I don't think anyone would have been very close. Thought this year was going to be completely different.
Yeah, man.
Completely in every way imaginable, right?
Yeah, so I think I like to think in memes. Sometimes I think it's a product of my age. Uh, but there's one that really captured it for me that it was last year towards the end of the year, and it was that 2020 was going to be litty titty because every holiday and like there was like multiple Friday the 13th. One of them obviously was in October. Um, and all the holidays would land on Fridays and Saturdays, and it was going to be party central.
Mm-hmm.
And
Party.
March came around.
Yeah. Record hurricanes, killer hornets.
That, oh my
You know,
god, I forgot about the Hornets.
yeah, that's up here where I'm at. We found a big nest of them, though.
That's fun.
Killed something like 26 queens or something.
So that was, it's, this year got so weird. It was one of those like, is that one really true? Like, I didn't Babylon B that one, did I?
Yeah, the memo about did we skip the bees? I feel like we skipped the bees. Another meme I saw today was a picture of like a movie theater lobby, and it said, "Only kids from 2019 will understand."
Yeah, man. I mean, I've also heard a lot of talk about, there's going to be a whole new generation of germaphobes, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, you never know how this stuff plays out. You don't really know, what the character of a decade is until it's over.
Yeah.
So I, I'm always interested in talking about the future, but I don't trust anyone who thinks they know it. You don't know it till it happens.
Yep. That's a great way to put it. Because I think anybody who has a curious brain in their head, right, when they hear somebody telling you this is exactly what's going to happen or this is for sure the way, it just kind of, you're like, I know I'm smart and I don't have any level of not sincerity, clarity, or sure, whatever. What am I looking for? Being so sure that I'm right about something that I do not believe you. But it's the people that pop off
Maybe just the
random.
arrogance of certainty is, showing some ignorance. You know, Y2K, the dams were all going to fail, the planes were gonna fall out of the sky. And these were very smart people saying this. These were not the kooks. These were the experts, the engineers, the scientists. Oh, it's all, based on 2-digit years. It's all going to go to hell. Nothing sells like, doom and gloom.
And that's, I think 2020 has shown us clearer than anything. You know, that's who they use to sell that stuff. The scientists and the serious people and the CNN,
Yeah.
It's wild how they've decided to, I don't know if you know of the whole like, sorry, I don't know, my throat's sorry. The whole red pill versus blue pill when it comes to, obviously I'm sure you know the Matrix reference, but when it comes to the cultural battle as it is today.
No, what's the analogy?
So, well, basically, trying to figure out how to make it full screen here. It seems like it, is, oh, red pill you're Republican, blue pill you're Democrat, but it's more nuanced than that. It's more direct reference to the Matrix, actually, because
How much
it's
do you believe what you're being told?
right, exactly. Thank you. If you see through the narrative that the alphabet soup including Fox, of news companies is there to
business.
yeah, make money off of you viewing and clicking, right? No matter whether the story's true or not. And I think in the past they did a lot better about, you know, trying to make it true more than not, but not anymore. They literally get a narrative from the top and all repeat it, word for word. That's when it got creepy.
Well, it's the internet age, of instant information, but also, in the old days, you didn't have to fill up 24 hours. And you weren't competing with a bunch of other people who were trying to fill up 24 hours. So the competition for eyeballs is just skyrocketed. When you could write an article that summed up the day, it's just a much different game.
That's very true. I think you also saw the news cycle went to what, because it used to be so much longer, right? And now it's things happen. I mean, look at the election.
You have weekly news magazines,
right?
Time Magazine, Newsweek. I used to buy those in college. And now the idea that you would read about something a week later is ridiculous.
Exactly. I catch myself doing that. Like, I'll see a YouTube video from some channel that's whatever, analyzing the pop culture or the news or whatever it may be. And I'm like, oh, it's a video from 6 months ago? Get out of here, dinosaur. You don't know what you're talking about. The world has changed.
2020, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's from August? Nah, come on.
Shit. Talk to somebody in March compared to today, and they sound like a moron. Because it just...
arrogance of predicting the future. And that's just, back to what we were saying at the beginning. I take it, one of my analogies is Karl Marx. When you read Marx's criticisms of capitalism, he's not wrong about a lot of them, or at least capitalism back in the day. Mm-hmm. What he was just horribly wrong about was his predictions.
Yeah.
The arrogance that I figured out the perfect solution. That's where he got off track.
Mm-hmm.
His criticisms weren't too far off. The idea that he came up with something better was where his arrogance killed him.
And it's so funny because you literally see the exact same thing reflected in the people out in the streets today, burning cities down. You see the exact same arrogance. If you do an exercise with the left and the right, it'll really show this point clearly. The right can always tell you what the left is thinking accurately. They may deride it and, they'll give you shit for it and tell you how dumb it is, but they will be able to accurately portray your point. You ask the left to tell you what is the actual mindset of a Trump supporter? Oh, it's fucking, I want to go around my neighborhood and go lynching every person darker than me that I can go find and fuck them. Like, that's literally what they think of their opponents,
Well, even pre-Trump, I remember having conversations with people who were telling me what I really mean.
Yep.
What I really think. And I'm like, I think I know what I'm actually telling you what I really think. You don't have to redefine it for me.
My mom was the worst with that shit. She literally would tell me, like, well, no, you can't really say that because X, Y, and Z. I'm like, well, first off, if you tell me I can't say it, I'll just say it like an annoying 5-year-old until you want to slap me. Like, that just because you told me I can't. Yeah. I don't know what part of that was built into me or what, but that's, it's who you got. I don't do well with the do what I said because I told you so.
Yeah, somebody's always trying to explain the alternative motives.
Mm-hmm.
What we're really saying and what our real motivations are.
Here's why that's actually racist.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's so funny, and it's not because Trump's a symptom. He's not the causal disease. This shit didn't start in 2016, like I think to anybody that honestly thinks that is just not paying attention, because he couldn't have got elected in 2016 if there wasn't half a country that was there to vote for him and help him win the White House with memes.
My brother, who's a very liberal person, and we were having some conversations recently, and he's like, you don't believe that, racism and white supremacy is on the rise?
They always start that way.
And I was like, no, no, I don't.
And watch his jaw hit the floor.
I believe it's on the rise in the media. I believe it's being talked about, but not like never before. But I don't think all of a sudden people are like, you know what? I'm feeling more racist tonight. I'm not buying it. Are there racists out there? Absolutely.
Yep.
There's cooks everywhere.
All 40 of them are on a list, and the FBI knows exactly where they are.
And in a country of 370 million, if it's 0.01%, that's a lot of freaking people. So it's not like it's not a problem. But do I think it's on the rise? No, no, absolutely not. In my lifetime, I've seen so much progress. Just in that short time, on the way people think about race, the way people think about interracial marriage or gay marriage or whatever. We're moving forward. Just take a breath.
I mean, you know who my fiance is. I've never gotten a sideways look. I've never nothing. I've probably brought it up more as a point to show like I very rarely do this. I usually do it when she starts it, funny enough. But she'll say, well, like, but I'm Mexican. I'm like, yeah, exactly. And then I'll go off on it. But I'm like, I don't bring it up. But
But no one thinks a thing about it, right? I'm
exactly.
sure there are people out there that do, but
Right.
is it on the rise? No, no, I don't believe that for a second.
Because yeah, right, exactly. Because I mean, you literally have to think that those racist people look around and go, you know what? When people act racist, it really works out for them. I'm gonna try that. This is going well. That is so.
Anything to do to say racist things. Or
Nobody in the news cares about. Nobody will report on me. Nobody minds. Everybody's cool with racism now. That's the message that you've received from pop culture. Because what rock are you under? I don't.
Yeah.
When you're on the side of Google and fucking literally every big corporation is on the side of Antifa and BLM and the left and fuck Trump and the whole thing, and they are just nope, we're anti-establishment even though the establishment's behind us. What, I'm pretty sure that's an oxymoron you can't just get over. That's not one that you can just ignore.
I have felt since his election that he's always characterized as far right. Far right passes, and I never saw him that way. I saw him as an anti-establishment. If anything, he's broken a lot of staunch GOP norms. I mean, justice reform,
Yep.
targeting.
Anti-war.
He went after several mainstream issues. And it's, well, what about the Muslim ban? Okay, first of all, that's a farce.
Yeah.
The Obama administration said supported terrorism. The most
Yep.
populous Muslim countries in the world are not banned from entering this country. That was always a lie. The wall, the racist things he said about immigrants. Well, he's got a mouth on him, and he says a lot of dumb things in this very careful culture. But
Yeah.
look at his ratings in Florida. A lot of people who come in here legally, of every race, are like, actually, that's not a crazy argument.
Yep. The only time I found with the people that he does turn off the because the CNN watching older, so Carolina from work
Yep.
is my best example. I don't know if you have her on Facebook or not, but she's very CNN left, where it's just like, I don't even know if I feel the need to argue against this because I just know you haven't looked it up. Like, you're just looking at the one article from CNN whose last 4 years, literally at every daily meeting, on every daily sheet of notes, the entire thing over and over again, like Jack Nicholson in The Shining, is fuck Trump, fuck Trump, fuck Trump, fuck Trump, fuck Trump. That's their whole page. That's it. That's all they've had. Which, actually, it's funny because I really can't. I'm super okay with however this election turns out because I almost can't decide if I want Trump to win or not. I almost want to hand this. I will never call this country a pile of shit, but what the rubble that they've been trying to turn it into, I want to hand it to Biden and go, here you go. Y'all created this shit. By the way, CNN, MSNBC, all of y'all, who are you going to report on now? What you got? You're going to ban Trump. You're going to kick him out of polite society like Alex Jones. So the only reason anyone's watched y'all for 4 or 5, almost 6 years now has been to hate on Donald Trump. Same reason they voted for Biden. it's hate watching. And once the guy's gone, I mean, they might as well make it a nature channel.
Well, they survived Obama. It was a love fest for 8 years, and they they didn't do well compared to Fox, but
Yeah.
they'll be all right.
Dude, I want to invest in One America News Network right now because the Republicans, when they're in opposition, always get their boost. And I know now that Fox has decided to go whatever weird lefty middle, like they called the election for Biden literally first. Did you see that?
I don't think they were wrong. To me, as demonized as they are, they're probably one of the most accurate channels, and I think they're trying to be less in the tank for Trump as they should be.
I think they're trying. I think they see a moment of weakness and they go, "Oh, we can get the neocon Republican right back. Let's get him the hell out of here." And then we can have all the Warhawks back on to talk about how we need to be here, there, and the other place and get back to our money-making machine. Because the Democrats are on board with it.
I think Fox is always very wisely, what they figured out was half the country is Republican, half the country is Democrats, and we have, 8 networks that serve Democrats.
Yep.
If we had one that served Republicans, we could get half the viewers. Right? I mean, it's just...
Right.
It's obvious brilliance.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Rupert Murdoch, right?
Yeah. I really don't think it's about ideology. It's
correct.
Simple enough. There's half the country that's unserved by the media. Let's go after them.
It's the exact same way that the Democratic Party has literally couldn't give less of a shit about, well, anyone. They care about your ballot. That's it. Like, if they can make your lives worse while making theirs better and get your vote, they will, without hesitation. And I don't think that's... I think it's slightly less prevalent on the right. I don't think that's true of people like Dan Crenshaw, And there's gems in the Democratic Party like Tulsi Gabbard, but they're one.
That's funny. I like her too.
I love Tulsi.
During the primaries.
She did it poorly, but her policies are great. Her policy, it's a,
Well, I mean, they at least seem
some. Her anti-war stuff. Yeah.
And I thought that was lacking in most of the other candidates. Whether I agreed with her or not, I felt like she actually believed what the hell she was saying.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. Well, because she did. It was very clear, it seemed, right? And especially... It's literally like putting black against white when you put her, the realist, Hawaiian lady out there, versus Kamala Harris, who can't actually be a person. There's no way. She's like Tom Cruise levels of like, I'm in love, jumping on the couch where she's like, oh, this is how I've seen people act on TV, so that's how I'm going to pretend to be a real human. She's an alien or something, man. Like, the cackles in the middle of interviews, she scares me.
Yeah.
She scares the hell out of me.
She's a typical politician. I don't worry too much about Biden getting elected because I'm a patriot. I think the founding fathers, for all their flaws, set up a really good system, and I think it would take a genius to ruin it. Now, you might make it worse, but you're not going to crash the damn thing. It's set up far too well.
All right, that's a very positive message. I like that.
Yeah, I've seen presidents come and go. The ship keeps sailing, man.
Yeah, and what I hope for is that people, because I'm a libertarian, I'm a no government guy. I'm still being convinced by the anarchism argument, just because the whole roaming warlords thing seems a little excessive. I don't think if there's no... Right? I don't think it'll be Mad Max in 10 years if we get rid of people like Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. I just don't. But I do see the argument. The one I struggle with is the security force type thing, because I'm almost a minimalist, like literally like police, fire. I don't even like roads. Like, I think the whole roads argument is retarded. Like, you need the government to build the roads. Like, no, we have fast track. Like, we've already figured this out. The government just holds on to their peace by gunpoint. That's it. if I think if the market were allowed to at least test it, that is what I don't like. In certain sectors where maybe you could whatever try to mitigate risk to suffering, whatever it may be. I mean, I just look at the DMV and anything that the government runs and think there's no way that there's not competing companies that can do better than that, especially working where we work. Like,
the private sector could do it better if there was a market, right? Where I think government can play a role is there a market in, clean water?
I think there is. I do. I think that people will pay more for clean water. I really do. I honestly think. I mean, do you think there's anything that capitalism doesn't want to monetize? That's which I also see as a problem. I do see it as it comes out of my mouth, but.
I mean, I just think there's bigger fish to fry than to go, than the roads and the clean water.
Sure.
And the I think we should try to scale it all back, and at some point we'll probably go, oh yeah, okay, this works and that works, but it's just gone one direction for too long.
I
this in a little bit now.
No, I think. See, the thing is, not for too long, for the whole time. It's never this. This has always. This has never happened. This has not. Well, okay.
Like it's mostly been post World War II. Like it was. There was a little more ebb and flow to it before FDR.
I would say before Woodrow Wilson, wouldn't you? When he decided we needed to go, around the world telling people how it should be. The basically when he turned us into an empire. I think that is a huge turning point. From a
policy point of view, I would go back to Wilson, but from a domestic government, I think FDR had a far greater influence over the way we think about government.
Yeah, that's probably fair. Yeah, because all of the people that I listen to for my influences, politics-wise, it started funny enough with Joe Rogan, because he was very just slightly left of center, where it was all about free speech and smoke all the pot you want and do whatever you want and don't harm other people, which I'm very much about. And he also has a strong anti-violence thing just because he's been in fighting for so long, and he's seen a lot of people get hurt, so he doesn't like seeing violence type stuff. And I don't know, the whole when you're young, if you're young and you're not a liberal, you don't have a heart, and if you're old and you're not a conservative, that thing. I went through that in 2 years.
But I'm curious from your libertarian point of view where you stand on BLM then.
I'm not I'm libertarian or not. That actually BLM makes me more conservative. Hilariously, BLM makes me like, oh, y'all want to do socialism? We won the Cold War, bitch. Let's do it again. But from
my libertarian point of view, I have some sympathy with the argument that the police need to be reined in.
100%. But
so, I don't.
That's not what it's about anymore.
That minority communities are disproportionately affected by bad policing.
Yes. To me, looking at that part of the problem and saying here's where we need to focus is literally like when the recruiters say we don't have enough people in the system. I'm like, no. The problem's not. It's way up here.
Yeah.
And I couldn't agree. So I have a fence post right up my ass about police. I really do. Because I know I've met a lot of good guys. I've been pulled over by a couple cops that were pleasant as shit. I've been pulled over by cops that were assholes and a half and gave me a ticket for no reason.
What's the ratio?
1 to 4. No, 2 to 4.
Do you know anyone who hasn't had a run-in with an asshole cop?
No, and I couldn't agree more that there are. So it's not fuck the police. It's fuck the police's boss. That's usually where the problem lies because they don't have the types of regulations that weed out people that will be too weak to take somebody down, so they have to pull out a gun. They don't weed out they don't get rid of the people that BLM appropriately points to who have had 30, 40 charges that have had some evidence to them of actual racial prejudice. But what's funny is CNN and that's usually not what they bring up. Like, have you ever heard them say the name of Duncan Lemp? Or, like, they don't ever say the name of a white person. And so it literally excludes half the population, where they have to get over a hump of, like, because if you look at the stats, numbers-wise, white people get killed double, I think, what black people get killed by cops. But obviously black people are not half of the population of white people. I understand the whole proportionality argument.
I've seen that statistic rolled out, and to me, I'm like, you realize you just proved their point, right? I mean,
yeah,
they're of the population, their numbers should not be that high.
Yeah,
right?
And it's funny because both sides fail in that. Almost every time I hear that argument, that's what exactly, and that's how I've been able to make the fucking argument correctly, is because you listen to both sides and you see where the failures are, right? And oh shoot. I had a Zoom time limit, but apparently they're being nice. But which actually wouldn't be a huge problem. We could just end it and start it again. I'm still recording. But the right always misses the whole. Well, I think what it is mostly is that they feel they've already made the proportionality argument. It's about, because it is about the interactions, right? And about getting rid of bad cops, and about having cops. So something somebody threw out was that all cops should have a purple belt in jiu-jitsu. I think that's a fucking great standard.
To me, it's not only about the racism aspect, and I think that is a very real thing, because I think judging people by their appearance is a very human thing, right?
Yes.
And sometimes it's not about being black, but it's about being a certain economic class, which is proportionally black. But to me, the issue is not just about the racism; it is about the militarization of the police.
Yep.
And the police unions really advocating for taking a very aggressive stance with their population and behaving more like occupiers than civil servants.
Absolutely. I mean, it's kind of the same way the politicians went, right? It's Waco, it's the riots, it's you know,
hyper-aggressive attitude.
Us versus them is what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, you talk to anybody that's had a security job, and they'll tell you they fucking hate people that go to concerts. And
that's they have to deal with. It's a very human thing to, to start to have that attitude about the people you're policing. I mean, they see shit every day. I get it. They see horrible things. They get around horrible people, and they get cynical, and they get mean, maybe, right? And
how does that never get recognized?
Against that, we almost encourage it with our militaristic training of police.
And with the protect your brothers no matter what, even if they fucking, use some black kid's head as a basketball. And that has to stop. That, is horrifying. And honestly, I think it's another effect of government. It's where my libertarian side comes roaring back in and says, hey, private security force fucking deals with that. Or they go out of business. The government can't go out of business. The cops can't go out of business. And that's a problem. It's also a problem. I see the problems that is created.
Prisons are run so much better than the government one.
No, but that's not fully private, and you know it because it's tied into the government, right?
Well, it's tied into the government. It's also tied into unions.
Right.
I think police unions are a problem. I think prison guard unions are a problem because they advocate for more.
Yep. They fought against the legalization of every drug, even though the drug... I mean, could you find a better example of a war that has proven to be counter-effective? I mean, you can really make a motherfucker of a case for the Middle East at this point with Yemen, with the open-air slave trades when they used to have girls in miniskirts. But...
we have more success in the Middle East than we have on the war on drugs.
Exactly. And that's terrifying.
Yeah.
And
because the leadership is equally as corrupt, perhaps.
Yeah, and because nobody actually wants to fight it; they just want to make money off of it. I mean, think about the problems that get solved. Think about the relationships in Mexico. Just think about Mexico. Just think about Mexico, and then the cascading effect of solutions that come out of that. if the cartels are completely, it's not even like just disincentivized,
Yep.
right? And if you can get weed and whatever coke and everything at the corner store, why the fuck would you go to an alley with a guy with a gun with a psychological problem to buy your stuff? That's just mental.
I totally agree that it should be handled like a health problem and not a criminal problem.
Yeah.
I don't think the police should be used to resolve every human failing and every moral quandary. And I
Yep.
always make the argument, like, hey, I mean, I think we can all agree adultery is wrong. Do you want the police to enforce that?
Yep.
Well, they don't need to solve every problem, okay?
Yep. And so I think there's like a two prong in this, because I think that one, if we are gonna have cops, they should be out there to arrest people for rape, murder, and theft. And if you can name me another violent, non-victimless crime that I've missed, add it on the list. But
Well, and I agree with that, and I would also say that what's troubling is, as full of as our prisons are, we seem to let predators go.
a lot.
Yeah, and anytime I hear on the news,
And then
killed
put
this
them.
5-year-old girl, a year after he was released from prison, I'm like, why the fuck did we let him go?
And then Trump had to use a goddamn executive pardon to let out a little old lady who had weed.
Yeah, exactly.
That's idiocracy, man. Like, how is that, And or it's Cuomo, if they're not being let out just randomly, it's Cuomo just like, fuck it, let's put them in with the old people during a pandemic.
Asylum for the criminally insane. You're just never going to be safe in society, and we're going to keep you as long as that's true. Prison should not be just about punishment. It should be about protecting society, because the punishment doesn't work.
Yeah, yeah. Preventative punishment and like punishment on pre-crime especially. That shit just does, like speeding, stuff like that, traffic violations, or better than that, anything where it's like, this is the one where I struggle with, because to me, DUIs are on the line of like, there are plenty of people that can have a beer and a half and drive home. There are plenty of people that can get a little drunk and drive home. And then if they hurt someone, they should be arrested. But I get the preventative part of that, of like, I don't know, I'm so against preventative crime or whatever, preventative policing on most levels.
Here's always been my where we really have misapplied the solution is, when people drink and drive, we take away their driver's license. You should have your license marked that does not allow you to buy alcohol. Right? Because taking away their economic means to support themselves is not going to help their drinking problem.
Yeah.
Just mark the license that says don't sell to this guy, and if you buy alcohol for this guy, this gal, you can be in trouble too. Treat it like an addiction problem, not like a driving problem. Right? The problem is not driving. The problem is they have no self-control because they're an addict.
That's fair. That's fair. I would almost say like mandated court therapy, and like, or maybe like, I would even be okay with like, you can't drive until you've completed these court sessions or whatever, or like you have to be, because like, if you're willing to put everybody at risk of death, I think that needing to inconvenience someone in your life to drive you around is kind of fair, if possible. But at the same time, I'm literally, all of this makes me feel like I'm getting that feeling in my stomach of just like, I don't like walking down this path at all. Pre-crime type stuff is literally, to me, like regulating free speech in little bitty ways. It's just like, man, that slope is covered in ice.
So, and this goes to my feeling on imprisonment and criminal justice in general. And you said, well, it's fair. It's fair punishment, but I go back to the question: is it effective? Does it actually solve the problem?
I couldn't agree more.
I could give a shit whether it's fair or not. I want to know whether it works.
Yeah, no, I agree. Okay, so I think this I tend to do. I get down a rabbit hole and I'm arguing a specific point that ends up being kind of against how I actually feel, just to argue, niggle the point. But I have said this to Sandy 100 times. Prison doesn't work, flat out. It doesn't. Period. For anybody
It doesn't make people better.
at all.
I mean, I'm sure you can pull out people, plenty of examples of people who found religion or turned their life around. I get it. It happens. What percentage of the time does it happen? Is
And
it 1%? Is it
right.
half a percent? Yeah, I get that it happens once in a while, and those are great stories to hear. But
And is it because he did? And is it because he did all of the things that people don't normally do in prison? So maybe we should copy the things that he did and make that instead of what everybody else, right?
We're gonna you made a mistake. You did something that was dangerous or whatever, and we're gonna stick you in with a bunch of other criminals for a couple of years and then put you back out in society.
Right. It's literally criminal training. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
And
you should have some aptitude for this life of crime. Let's put you in the university setting.
right. Right. It's so it's so funny. And I don't know. I don't. So I do need to get going in the next 10 minutes or so here. So a pattern that I have found in podcasts I like is rapping on positive things. Because it's easy to sit here for 35 minutes and go, man, this is fucked up. I like to think of how it's why I'm doing this. I want to try and see if there's something that I can do or any of us can do, or at least just talk about, like, what is the way out of this absolute madhouse.
Well, my youngest daughter, I love to death, is at the university getting radicalized. And we were recently kind of, how can you love America with all of it, all of the troubling things in our past, what we've done to blacks and Native Americans and all over the years. And, I hit it on several points, the progress I've seen simply in my lifetime, the amazing progress that's happened just in her adult life, right? With gay rights and stuff. I mean, it does move forward. You kind of have to have some perspective. But I think one of the things that kind of opened her eyes a little bit, she had a friend from Kenya who was telling her about her mother's concern was that she was in a nation that allowed gays to walk the street and how dangerous that was. And for her to kind of realize, yeah, we've got all sorts of problems. These are human problems. These are not American problems. America actually has a good way of dealing with very human problems. And do we have a lot of crap in our past? Yes, because we're human. Any institution of enough size is going to have a bell curve of humanity, of a lot of people in the middle, and then some amazing, wonderful people on this side, and some really low life, evil people on that side. But we have a really good system for moving the ball forward. And my argument has always been, are we a racist country? I mean, we're human beings. And so we always have kind of this tendency.
Find me one that's not.
But tell me how, show me a country that isn't.
Yep.
Right? We have a lot of problems because we have a lot of races. And so these human failings are, happen more often here than probably anywhere else. It doesn't make us a terrible country. It moves us forward faster because we have to deal with these problems more than anybody else does.
Yep. So that's awesome. That's exactly what I was gonna say with the first point of, like, when she says, "How can you love America with what it's done?" Find me one better. Good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck. And it's funny because they tend to point to, like, Sweden or something. It's like they have like 3 black people. You can't really have you don't have an amazing past in civil rights if you've made all 3 of them. Like, it wasn't an issue, and there's a lot of, so anyway,
every tribe is suspicious of the outsiders.
Yep. It's a fun thing to do if you have a group of people, immigrants, born in another country, maybe their parents aren't there, whatever, like with like you just use somebody like that as an example, right? But this is an example that somebody else used where they like to shake things up with their first question, right? So he had a table full of immigrants and he said, let's go around the table and say who the people from our country hate. Because
Everybody has an answer.
and it's funny because even if they pretend they don't, they'll say like, "Oh no, my country doesn't have anybody they hate." And it's like, oh, okay, who's your closest ethnically similar neighbor? Oh, well, we don't hate them. We just think they're dumb.
Right. We don't trust them, but we don't hate them.
Right.
Yeah.
We would never let one in our house or marry our
I'd let my
kids.
daughter marry one, but I mean, they're good people.
I won't go actively murder them. So, and that honestly to me is a positive message. It really is, because I think that racism. I like to look at it as discrimination because it's just another type of discrimination, right? And it can be misconstrued for other types of discrimination very easily. I don't know if you know who Gavin McInnes is, but he did it as an exercise. He walked around for a day with the internal, thought for the day of I am black. Any sideways look or anything, it's 'cause I'm black. He basically just had it's 'cause I'm black running as a mantra in his head, and he just started. I mean, everybody walking around and looking at him was, oh, this fucking guy's looking at me this way and that way, and it's because if you look for it and you perceive it, and if you see it as like, oh my god, if I get anywhere near this, it's gonna kill me, then you're gonna see it all over the place,
Well, there's that old saying when someone's being an asshole or whatever, and he's like, who hurt you?
Yeah.
So, people have experience that shape their perception going forward,
Yeah.
right? And I don't discount that, but you're right. Your attitude towards shapes everything.
And what's funny, I actually have a perfect example literally from today from work, but the most positive thing that you can do with that is flip it. Is when somebody has that perspective of you, and then or they don't know that you have the opposite perspective, and you have an amazing time with them. And then if you were to reveal, like, oh, I actually believe all this other stuff, like the literal exact opposite. Okay, let me just use the example. So there's a lady that came to work today. She wanted to change her dependents, right? Older, probably late 50s black lady and her friend about the same age. And she's got a bedazzled, it said Black Lives Matter, I can't breathe. And again, so I don't think I ever made my point clear on that. I do think that the police are horrifically out of control, but to focus on it as a racial issue muddies the water and makes it almost unsolvable.
Every issue is muddy, but okay, go on.
Anyway, so I'm sitting there talking to this lady, and it was just, I mean, I felt like I was talking to an old Southern lady. It was just sweet as pie. Everything is, oh my god, you're so nice, and literally, I mean, so it was funny because I didn't have I'm very bad about the mask thing. I can't get in the habit. This is the only year I've ever not gotten sick. You know how ridiculous that is?
I don't expect to.
Yeah, I don't either. Anyway. So I came out to give her the stuff, and she said, well, I'm gonna need your help on this, sweetie, but I'm gonna need you to get a mask on first. It was so funny. So I went and got the mask, went and came back and helped her out, and she was like, oh, thank you so much, you're so sweet. She was touching my elbow and like, you have such pretty eyes. The whole thing, right?
People that's impossible not to love, right?
Right. And just the energy she was giving, I fed it back and just totally, matched tone and everything because she was fun. And I guarantee, and I literally bought a t-shirt yesterday that it's a Punisher skull dripping with red, white, and blue. It says, fuck Antifa. Where, if we met in different circumstances, we wouldn't hear each other at all. And being able to come at it from a positive side and meeting positively first and then showing that you have different beliefs is the only way through this.
Well, instead of wearing your team colors, you just dealt with another person as a human being.
Yep. Yeah,
right?
And it works best every time,
Amazing how effective it is.
Especially when because a lot of people that come in are on their last straw, their last dollar, and their last gallon, and so they are tight, and it's nice to get somebody that's sweet coming in because it doesn't seem like it's the norm anymore, and it's nice to see, and it made me realize it just makes you think of putting more of that out in the world rather than the opposite, right?
one thing I learned parenting, and it was probably my philosophy before then, but parenting sure reinforced is that you really get back what you radiate, right?
I've noticed. I don't have the personal experience, but I've noticed in kids that are better or worse.
If you yell at your kids will eventually yell at you.
Yep, absolutely. That one I've noticed. And it's funny because that does seem to transfer to violence too, no matter how light.
Yep.
If you whack your kid, they're gonna swing.
Yeah. What do you teach them? Everything's example, but but it's not just parenting; it's just a parable of society in general. You
Yep,
really do get back what you give.
yep, absolutely, man. Everything's that repeat. I'm thinking Pythagorean instead of whatever it is, but whatever the repeating pattern is, turtles all the way down, baby.
Turtles all the way down. Love that phrase.
I love it so much. It's always true. All right, brother. I gotta wrap up. I gotta head out to karate and go kick some 11-year-olds' butt.
That's enough.
Alrighty, brother. Let's do it again soon. All right.
Yeah. Talk again.
Talk to you. All right. That was awesome.